tea when it because of all the little mites.
So going into day 6 today, we're going to talk radical forgiveness. And I think that there was like a random worksheet that got sent out with the workbook as well. And so we're going to be working with that today, but we're going to read a little bit about it. So if you want to turn to each page 86 in your book, you can also to read along.
I don't know if I received that workbook.
It's just a worksheet. If you didn't, I can email it to you really quick too.
Oh, I think mine's upstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's upstairs. You want me to go grab it? Or
Yeah.
It's not part of that PDF. It's a different worksheet.
The what?
Is it a different workbook than the PDF that you sent?
No, I think it's not the workbook. It's just one worksheet. So it's like one page. And
Oh, yeah. I don't think I have that.
okay, let me see. I think I can even just see it here in our chat, maybe. Media. Okay, so it's sending in the chat. Did it arrive?
Not yet.
You might have to click the chat button. I don't know.
I can just wait until it loads or
It says that it's on, but everyone reply.
it's a PDF.
Yeah, it's just like for me, what I see like in the chat is like can you
Yes.
check your phone and see if by chance there's been a message in the Zoom? Oh, you're not in the Zoom group.
yeah, I was gonna say I'm not in there.
I think I can probably send it into our group chat. Let me see.
Ooh. You want to know what my I am says today? It says, I release who Cami is today and open the door to a bigger and better life. And it literally says my name. That's so cute, right? I love that. I release who Cami is today. Oh.
Okay, cool. So now it should
It just went through. Yeah.
okay. So we'll talk a little bit about this and then we're going to go through the worksheets. But this has been something that's really helpful for me. We've already talked about how forgiveness is such an essential part of our healing and that it's something that we do for ourselves, not for the people. Like we're not stepping into the forgiveness for the others, but really to set ourselves free. So we'll start to read a little bit more about this and then I'll talk about the worksheets. So radical forgiveness is a tool with a deeply spiritual dimension, allowing one to see how each obstacle in life is a gift. These gifts are healing opportunities to look inside of your own mind and see the hidden emotional blocks that keep you from living a more peaceful, fulfilling, healthier, and happier life. These hidden blocks start to disappear as you begin to acknowledge and understand them. This results in healing your mind, body, and soul. When you view each obstacle in life as a gift, you reshape your reaction to them. Changing your perspective is the ultimate tool. Radical forgiveness is about realizing you already have this power within yourself It is simply about learning to use it and understand the steps to go into. You deserve a life that you are in love with, not one that you simply live by going through the motions. This method was created by Colin Tipping, MED. He called it a literal paradigm shift because it is such a huge, massive shift in the psyche. He wrote a wonderful book on this and created a process to lead you through the transformative process, which we're going to talk about. But first, let's talk about what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not condoning unkindness or abuse. It is not excusing poor behavior or abuse. It is not minimizing your hurt or abuse, and it is not reconciling with the offender. Okay, so sometimes when we think of forgiveness, we think that we need to mend the relationship with the person. But the thing is, a lot of the times, if we're doing the work, we can't guarantee that everyone else around us is. And so sometimes the work is in drawing boundaries, as we know. So that doesn't mean that we need to make peace with everybody. Sometimes it's about learning to say, you know what, this energy, I don't want to entertain you anymore. And the universe hears that and it removes the energy as we remove ourselves from it. And then it gives you another reflection, usually a more evolved reflection. And so it is a really important part of our healing to discern who we're going to allow in our space also. And so this is something that I think has been challenging because we all have like this devotion, this idea of like, you know, I should be there for someone, especially I think when we're experiencing trauma and we've experienced people not being there for us. A lot of the times we can turn that into this hyper devotion to others where we're like, I'm a ride or die. It's like, you know what, at the cost of drowning yourself, no. So remembering that forgiveness does not mean that we have to still continue to have relationships with the offenders of abuse in our lives, but that we can also limit that. And then we'll talk about what forgiveness is. It is for you and not the offender. This is all about us taking our power back and taking responsibility for how we feel. It is a trainable skill, but it's something that we have to practice. It's a choice. And forgiveness is all about loving ourselves with wisdom and grace. I really like this too. It says, what is most important to understand is that forgiveness is not forgetting, not condoning, not excusing or saying that the hurtful conduct is okay. And it's essential that forgiveness not be seen as obligatory. So it's a choice. And so this is something that I really want to reiterate, like the forgiveness is something that you come into when you're ready. And so this person, Colin Tipping, who created this method is like, well, okay, how do we get there, right? Like if we're not there yet, how can we get ourselves to that space so that we can feel freedom, so that we can live a life without carrying around the baggage of unforgiveness? And so he created like it's basically like a 3-part process. And so write it on right now, you guys can see. It says step 1 is about telling the story. And so this is when we tell the story from how we're feeling, right? Like this would be like, I woke up this morning and my partner was sleeping in bed and I knew he was ignoring me and it hurt my feelings when I really needed support and blah, blah, blah. Like that could be one thing in it, okay? That's like how I'm feeling. This isn't like what's going on. This is how I'm feeling. So this is the story that I'm telling myself. And then he would say, now we need to feel the feelings through the story. So we would tell the story in the first initial way, like, okay, well, this is the story. Then the second version of the story, we tell it again, but we talk about how we're feeling. Like, you know, it really makes me feel alone or hurts my feelings when my partner isn't present or making me feel like they're present. And I wish that instead he would do da 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 da. And then we go to the third lapsing of the story, which is this where the radical forgiveness and the radical understanding comes in. And it would be like, my partner is sleeping because he's tired and unaware of my needs. However, if I learn to communicate my needs, then maybe my partner can step into offering me what I need instead of expecting my partner to be a mind reader. So we see like the process of like the evolution, and what it is it's also accountability, right? Because it's like, yeah, I might feel that way, but what is my partner really doing wrong? Like if I were my partner and I was just resting and trying to get some rest and like, you know, and yet I'm having this real experience, I'm having this like feeling going on. And so a lot of the times what trauma would do is it would react, right? Like maybe I would go downstairs and slam around some cabinets or stomp around angrily or be grumpy for the rest of the day. And instead of doing that, if I can come into radical understanding, then I can understand, hey, I'm feeling like I'm not speaking my truth and getting my needs met. And so what I need to do is go speak my truth and see if I can't receive what I'm really needing by asking for it. And so through that process, we create understanding, and then we also create a way to receive what we're needing ultimately, which is the whole goal. And so it comes back to understanding and communication too, if it involves another person sometimes. However, if this is a radical forgiveness, right? Like the one I just talked about is like a small micro example. We want to talk about what he is talking about, like radical forgiveness. It could be like the examples that he used in the book are like, there's a school shooting and one of the kids gets shot and dies, and now the parents has to process this. And so this is radical forgiveness, right? It's not just like, yeah, my partner's not getting up. This is like, oh my God, how do I deal with this? This is where I need the help. This is where I need the divine. This is where I need a process, because it's radical. And so he calls it like a literal paradigm shift. He's like, you have to come into this higher understanding, this big place in order to really comprehend what's going on here for ourselves.
Like forgiving my daughters.
100%. The hardest things possible. This is when we really need this process. And so through a process like that, it might look like telling the story. All right, this punky ass kid came into the school. He was a little spoiled shit, and he fucking asshole, and he shot all these people, and now there's someone died, and this kid's a spoiled little brat and needs to be punished, and we need to da-da-da-da, right? Like that's like the initial story. And then feeling the feelings. Like I'm so upset. I'm so angry and hurt and pissed off and grieving, and my heart's breaking. And I'm really pissed off at you. And so we're writing the letter almost like it's to the person, okay? And then we come to collapsing the story, where this takes radical forgiveness, as we know. And it's something like, I know that if we come to yogic understanding, we realize that everything that is external is a projection of what's going on in our minds. And so if this is happening externally, if we can use the information to understand there's something within me that is creating this reflection, and the work starts here so that I can have a clear view here, then we empower ourselves to change instead of stay kind of like a victim mentality, which we're entitled to, by the way, because some of those things are insanely radical. And so we have to enter these spaces with a lot of compassion. He says also that the process is not something that we just do once and we're done.
Yeah.
Like, and I talk about this too, when we come into pigeon pose, which we'll probably do later today. to work on forgiveness. We might bring in radical forgiveness with our pigeon because we know that that energy can get stuck in the lower two chakras. And so, not only bringing in like affirmations and forgiveness when we come into these postures where the energy is stuck, but also working through it in a mental way, like with a worksheet, like what we're going to do today. So we know that it's stored in the body, but we're going to do this process also to move it out of the mind and create some understanding so that eventually this starts to shift. And so again, radical forgiveness is a gift we're offering to ourselves. It's also a process. It's not something that happens overnight, but the process is something that guarantees that you will arrive at some sort of peace if we continue to do it until we arrive there. So we're going to look at the radical forgiveness worksheets, and then we're going to do this worksheet, okay? So you can see that he starts out first with the telling of the story, and it says the situation which I have an upset is or was, tell the story from your victim standpoint. So again, we're like in the position and we're feeling the feelings. And then we go down to the second one and it says confronting. I am upset with you blank because, so the person that we're dealing with, we're going to put in there. I'm upset with you blah because da 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 da. And then you'll go to 2B. Because of what you did and or maybe are still doing, I feel, and identify the real emotion there. And then we go into 3 and it says, I lovingly recognize and accept my feelings and judge them no more. I am entitled to my feelings. How on that scale are you feeling? Are you willing to do it? Are you open to doing it? Are you skeptical or totally unwilling? And again, we're being really honest with ourselves. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just information to let us know where we are. Number 4 says, I own my feelings. No one can make me feel anything. My feelings are a reflection of how I see the situation. How do we feel about that statement? Are we willing to understand that? Are we open to understanding it? Are we skeptical or totally unwilling? So this is all about feeling the feelings. And then 5 says, my discomfort was a signal that I was withholding love from myself and blank the person by judging. Holding expectations, wanting blank, whatever the emotion is, or whatever the confronting is to change, and seeing blank as less than perfect. List the judgments, the expectations, and the behaviors that indicate that you were wanting him or her to change. And then it says, note, look to see how many of these judgments and expectations you are making also about yourself. So usually what we impose on others is exactly what we're imposing on ourselves, right? If we're expecting perfection from ourselves, well, then we're expecting perfection from everyone around us. And if we're expecting that, we're going to be disappointed not only with ourselves, but with those around us. So it's about understanding and coming into that real truth. So now we've told the story, we've talked about the feelings and identified the feelings that are actually underneath it. And then now we're going to collapse the story. So it says, I now realize that in order to feel the experience more deeply, my soul has encouraged me to create a bigger story out of the event or situation than it actually seemed to warrant. Considering just the facts, this purpose having been served, I can now release the energy surrounding my story by separating the facts from the interpretations I have made up about it. List the main interpretations and circle the level of emotion and attachment you have around each interpretation now. So below we write the interpretations that we made up about the above event. It could be something like, well, bad things always happen to me, and so that's just the way it is. And so here we go again. Or it could be like, you know, whatever you're feeling about the understanding, just being really honest with ourselves. And then we can write next to it the level of emotion at this moment when we're talking about it. Is it high? Is it medium? Is it low? Are we totally not feeling it? Then we move down to number 7, and it says core negative beliefs I either made up from my story or which drove the story. I will never be enough. It is not safe to be me. I'm always last or left out. People always abandon me. It is not safe to speak out. I should have been a boy or a girl. No matter how hard I try, it's never enough. Life's not fair. It is not good to be powerful, successful, rich, or outgoing. I'm unworthy. I don't deserve. I must obey or suffer. Others are more important than me. I am alone. No one will love me. I am unlovable, and no one is there for me. So we start to identify those roots, which is really where something happens. A lot of the times it's the initial trauma that is rearing its head up again to be recognized and healed. So we've talked about how trauma usually perpetuates itself until it's healed. It'll just keep repeating the cycle. It's just our consciousness. This is like the divine wisdom of like, hey, here it is again. This hasn't been healed. Hey, here it is again. This hasn't been healed. I'm going to keep coming up until you deal with me, you know? And so it's again about not taking it personally, but trying to remove the emotion around it for a moment and then look at it from an objective outsider position. And then it says, now opening to a reframe. I now realize that my soul encouraged me to form these beliefs in order to magnify my sense of separation so that I could feel it more deeply for my spiritual growth. As I now begin to remember the truth of who I am, I give myself permission to let them go. And I now send love and gratitude to myself and like the person for creating this growth experience. That's radical forgiveness, right? Like, I mean, that's something it's a paradigm shift and it takes time. And it's something, again, that we're doing to free ourselves. And it's something that is a process. So I also want us to release the expectation of perfection around the process as well. It's not about having to be perfect or have it, but it's, again, insight into ourselves so that we can give ourselves the appropriate care and appropriate support. And then it comes into noticing a pattern and seeing the perfection in it. I recognize that my spiritual intelligence has created stories in the past that are similar in circumstance and feeling to this one in order to magnify the emotional experience of separation that my soul wanted. I am seeing this as evidence that even though I don't know why or how, my soul has created this particular situation too, in order that I learn and grow. List similar stories and feeling experiences as in to be, which is because of what you did, are doing, I feel. And then note the common elements in them. And then again, we're stepping into the awareness of like, some days we're going to be like, yeah, no, I don't even want to hear that. I don't even have the forgiveness. I don't even have the ability to reframe the story or to even come into lapse in this story today. And that's information too. So it doesn't mean that we have to step into that right away, but it's a process that leads us to that initial or that end game eventually. So again, keeping that in mind. And we have it on the back too, so it goes even further still. Now we go towards the reframe. And it says, I now realize that I get upset only when someone resonates in me, those parts of me that I've disowned, denied, repressed, and then projected onto them. I see now the truth in the adage. If you spot it, you've got it. It's me in the mirror. So this is another thing that he says throughout the book. If you spot it, you got it, which means if you see it in someone else and it creates a visceral reaction in you, that's because it's in you too.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's something that it's reflecting back to you that needs to be mended.
I'm such a firm believer.
It's so true. And it's
It
hard,
is,
right?
yeah.
Like, because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
So again, we don't have to be in the space always to where we're like, yeah, I feel that 100% and I'm leaning into that. This is about gauging where we are with the process. So how close to that are we? Are we willing? Are we open? Are we skeptical or are we totally unwilling to even enter that space? All of those are okay responses. Then we move to number 11 and it says X is reflecting what I need to love and accept myself. Thank you, blank, for this gift. I am now willing to take back the projection and own it as part of my shadow. I love and accept this part of me. So again, this is radical. But the thing that happens too is that when we change, everything around us change. So the cool thing is that when we are ready to step into these spaces, it's really, really cool to see how everything around us changes, how the relationships around us change, how the reflections around us start to change. Because when we heal those things, we no longer need that reflection. So those characters start to leave our reality.
That is so true.
Which is so refreshing.
It really is.
So. And then it says, even though I may not understand it all, I now realize that you and I have both been receiving exactly what we each had subconsciously chosen. And we were doing a dance with and for each other to bring us to the state of awakened consciousness. How willing are we to go into that space? And then it says, I now realize that nothing you blank have done is either right or wrong. I am able now to release the need to blame you or anyone else. I release the need to be right about this, and I am willing to see the perfection in the situation just the way it is. And then 14 says, I am willing to see that for whatever reason, my mission or soul contract, including having experiences like this, and that you and I may have agreed to do this dance with and for each other in this lifetime. If it is for the highest good for both of us, I now release you and me from the contract. And then finally, number 15 says, I release from my consciousness all the feelings of, and then we go back to 2B, which is where we know that the feelings that were coming from the event were making us feel this way. So again, he talks about too that like, and maybe you guys have heard this before, I think in like yoga and stuff and all these different communities, we talk about it, right? Like that we made a soul contract to come here and have certain interactions with certain people to heal our soul. And this is what we believe in yoga, like the philosophy anyway, is saying like, yes, we keep reincarnating until we learn what we need to learn, until our soul can actually evolve to the point where we reach samadhi. And so this is part of that process. So if we can kind of almost even have that higher awareness that, yeah, I incarnated in this life to have this experience, to grow my soul, you know, it reminds me of, like I told you guys, you know, I had a lot of abuse. And when I came here to Costa Rica, I did a ceremony. It was with this frog medicine, Bufo, and it's like this DMT, highest form of DMT that they make. And so when I took it, I told you guys, I think that like my message was that spirit was like, these are your gifts. All the hard things that you've gone through were gifts. And it made you stronger and wiser, and your soul and your spirit learned what you needed to know. And now you're also going to be able to evolve and help other people. And so if we can come into that radical understanding, then sometimes that can help us with the really, really hard things to forgive. And again, this is all about freeing ourselves, right, from the bondage of what we're thinking. Because we can't always change our circumstances, but we can change our thoughts about it. And that's where the freedom and power comes. So it is radical, it is powerful, it is a process, and it's something that we do when we're ready. There's no rush. Nobody tells us when or how this has to be done. But if we feel called to have this help facilitate that, then that's what this can be. Okay. And then it talks about reframing the statement. So now we've gone through the whole understanding process. And so it says the story in box 1 was your victim story based on the old paradigm of reality, victim consciousness. And now we're going to attempt different perception of the same event we're gonna call it a reframe. From your new empowered position, based on the insights you have experienced as you have proceeded through this worksheet. It may simply be a general statement indicating that you just know everything is perfect, or a statement that includes things specific to your situation. If that is, you can actually see what the perfection is. Often you cannot. Be careful not to do a reframe that is based in world of humanity terms. Note any positive shift in feeling or tone. And so it says like, I now realize. Would be like, I now realize that these things happened in my life to teach me and to make me wiser, to also empower me with the knowledge that I need to also help others heal and evolve. Something like that would be like the radical forgiveness reframe statement, right? And then we talk about integrating the shift. So now we understand it in our mind. We've gone through this little process. How are we going to integrate the shift? It says, I completely forgive myself, blank, and accept myself as loving, generous, and creative being. I release all the need to hold on to emotions and ideas of lack and limitation connected to the past. I withdraw my energy from the past and I release all the barriers against the love and abundance that I know I have in this moment. I create my life and I am empowered to be myself again, to unconditionally love and support myself just the way I am in all my power and magnificence.
I would tap doing that.
That's a really good
Only
idea.
because like, if we're trying to like rewrite the story and we really truly release that, like tapping is gonna help to release that from ourselves and like our actual body, not just our mind.
Totally. And then 18 says, I now surrender to the higher power I think of as law, and trust in the knowledge that this situation will continue to unfold perfectly and in accordance with divine guidance and spiritual law. I acknowledge my oneness and feel myself totally reconnected with my source. I am restored to my true nature, which is love, and I now restore love to the being that we were having conflict with. I close my eyes in order to feel love that flows in my life and to feel the joy that comes when the love is felt and expressed. Then 19 says, a note of appreciation and gratitude to you, blank. Having done this worksheet, I completely forgive you, for I now realize that you did nothing wrong and everything is in divine order. I bless you for being willing to play a part in my awakening. Thank you. And honor myself for being willing to play a part in your awakening. I acknowledge and accept you just the way you are. So again, just really coming into this complete understanding where we offer even forgiveness. That's like the radicalness, right? And it's really for us. Comes back to 20 and it says, a note to myself. I recognize that I am a spiritual being having a spiritual experience in a human body, and I love and support myself in every aspect of my humanness. Okay. So this is the process, and he talks about, you know, again, doing this over and over until we feel like we don't need to do it anymore. So, you know, I also like to think of it as once you write this, you could also burn it. You could, you know, do a little ceremony with it too, especially when you feel like you're really able to go through the whole process. Because there might be times where you pick up this worksheet to do the process and you make it to maybe collapsing the story and you're like, I'm not even there. Not, sorry.
Yeah.
So the level of emotion today is high and I'm definitely unwilling. And so it's insight into ourselves and the process. And so even if we're marking unwilling and skipping things, we're still just showing ourselves so much compassion. So much tenderness during the whole process as well. The other thing that he talks about in the book that I really like is forgiveness isn't even needed because nobody ever did anything. So this is a really divine understanding, right? That would mean that no matter what, The way I see this is that the divine uses everything for good. The
Yeah.
divine uses all the things that happen in life for the greater good.
Yeah, whether you feel that they're bad or good, it's all for the better.
Totally.
You know, that's so funny you say that because I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, you have to embrace the bad with the good. No matter what the situation is, no matter how damaging it is, like it's for a reason, whatever reason that is, whether you understand it or not, you have to embrace it.
Totally. And I even like shifting it to light and dark instead of good or
Mhm.
bad even,
Yeah.
just because of
Yeah,
the
light and
verbiage of
dark.
identifying it, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, but again, this is something, obviously I saved it towards the end because it's a radical forgiveness, something that's major. But I do really like that when we can come into that conscious divine understanding, like nobody did anything wrong. There's no forgiveness even needed. Like, it's like, oh my God, what a relief. Like, you know, but it's the energy that's being held. So
Mhm.
forgiveness is the act of releasing the energy in life. And so hopefully that's what we can achieve through this worksheet. So we're gonna take a little time to do the worksheet. We'll move through it, and then whenever you're done, you guys can just let me know. I'm gonna do one along with you. And then we'll talk about it afterwards. Okay?
What if there's like multiple things
I would
for the work?
pick the one that's like pinging the most, the one that's like hitting the most on the highest, and then like when you want to do the other ones too. Just for right now, for the practice, do one, but like maybe this afternoon, do the worksheet for like each of those incidences.
Okay.
Okay. Take your time.
Mhm. What about now? Mhm. Mhm. Oh my gosh. Guess I could do the internet. instead of nothing.
Mhm. If you need to do it on another piece of paper, you can too.
Yeah, I was thinking that, so I was like, I really wanna, I want
Save
more
them, yes.
copies. Like, I want like 20.
I know. Well, now you guys have the PDF too. If you have a printer, you can just print them out when you need them.
So on these parts, do I put her name?
Yes.
And this-
Mhm. Mhm.
What question?
Mhm.
So like, for this part, is it these things? We put seven here.
I think
With the
like,
expectation. I don't really understand.
I think, for me, like, you could translate that down. I think it's like more like specifically even like, what am I telling myself in that moment? Like, what am I hearing? Like, for me, one of the ones I was like, you only care about your needs. Like, you don't mind making me hurt in order to get your needs met, like, I don't know, like,
No,
certain,
no, that's actually,
you know,
that's actually, yeah.
I'm not a priority, like, those.
Like I could put like my needs don't matter.
Mhm.
Sure, I can reframe that.
Which number?
16.
It can be like something super simple, like for me, I wrote something that just said like. To the person that you are participating in my reality and reflecting back to me what is needed. But like they put like that it could just be, you know, something simple, general statement. Like it doesn't have to be super crazy, just like I see the perfection in this, or I can see the lessons, or something like. Are you done, Audrey?
I need a few more minutes, sorry.
No, take your time. I think Tammy's still working too. I just wanted to check in. And also remember too, there's like if we're not there. Also, it's like, well, then we're not there too. So that's always.
Maybe.
Huh?
Maybe. I'm not there.
That's okay too.
Well, I don't know. Like, I now realize that.
Like if there was a silver lining to it, what would it be? I now realize that even though this is hard, I got blah, blah, blah out of it. You know?
It was just like a control. shield. So like, at the end of the day, it was her trying to be in control. No. I don't
But
know.
also she's in your reality
Yeah,
for a reason. So
Right.
what's that reason? What's she trying to teach you? What's she trying to show you? Because let's just say like she doesn't exist, but she's a character in your mind. And this character has been given the role of
I now
teaching you.
realize I need to release.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jen.
Truth bomb creeping out for all of us. It was sobering for me working through my own. I'm just gonna tell you.
Now realize that.
Right?
I mean, that's cool. And then I put her name here too?
Mhm.
Okay.
And then the other thing that he says too is if we can say these out loud, like to fully anchor the transformation, speak everything written here and what you write out loud. We won't have to do
Okay.
that to each other because I know it might be private. You're welcome to, but you know, keep working on it too. I'm gonna run to the restroom.
I know I got to do
Have
that
some
too, actually. Notice. That to you. I'll be right back too. I have to go to the bathroom.
Huh?
I just thought,
Oh, yeah?
yeah, like one I've never seen before. So that was fun. Hmm. I have a pocket and I didn't know it. This is like a sports.
Yes.
Yes.
Neat thought, too.
Yes. I was like, what? It's so cool. I've noticed that just like a little bit ago. I was like, oh, I have a pocket here. I was like, that's kind of cool. Hmm. Crazy. I like this radical forgiveness. I've already done radical forgiveness in my life.
I'm sure. Anybody
it's
with trauma
crazy.
has had to
Like
probably
it's
accept
this is
it.
like it's just kind of neat though to like see, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Mm. You got a virus thing.
Oh, it's just it's telling me, do I want to renew my antivirus or whatever?
Fun.
I'm like, oh no. Like my but the room space. right side.
Yeah, mine was on the left. When we were laying down, like in that space from the left side, and I was like, ooh, what is this?
Okay, I just finished.
All right. So how do you guys feel about the worksheet? Was it challenging? Were you able to get through the full process all the way to number 20?
It was challenging. There's a few parts where I was like, I don't know how to say this, you know? But I did get through the whole thing. So, and I do, like number 6, my emotions were all high.
Yeah. Mine were 2 out of 3 were high on that. How about you, Audrey? Or how was
I was able to finish it all, but I don't have the worksheet printed out, so I just wrote it down on my notebook, and I had a really good time with it. It felt good to write it out.
good? So tonight is like part of your homework. I want you guys to be able to like read it out loud to yourself. Okay, you know, so go through it. Fully, it says like really fully anchor in this transformation, like we speak it, you know, it's like putting it out into the universe even more. And even if you want to go a step further, you can like burn the paper to kind of like really just like let
Release
yourself
it.
know, yeah, I'm like letting it go. And I don't know if you heard Audrey, but Cami was saying it'd be cool to tap some of this stuff too. I think that's a
Yeah.
good idea also.
Yeah, I think that would be so good, especially when we're doing 17 and 18, because we're putting back in those positive reinforcements of forgiving ourselves, you know, and loving ourselves. So,
And the other thing, like, I don't know if you guys were able to identify, but for me, my situation led me to the root. Like, it wasn't this actual situation that was like the root of all these things, but it was actually like, you know, like the feelings of to be were stuff that I had felt a long time from someone else previous. And so I also think that it's important when we do these worksheets to be like, when did I first feel those feelings? Who made me feel that initially? Is there something parallel in my past that maybe happened that this is recreating for me to get rid of once and for all? Because if we have a rooted trauma that has not been released, the psyche will recreate scenarios in order to get us to step into the medicine of it. And so I put like the roots, the initial wound, and the replayed wound. So thinking about it like from the place of like, yes, if trauma happens at a young age, we're never given the right tools to process it. And so more often than not, the trauma from our childhood starts to recreate itself in our adult lives so that we can start to see the things which are the roots that need to be healed. So it's not always a person that needs necessarily the resolve. It's that there's a root inside of us that needs to be pulled out. And until we pull that root out, we're going to keep replaying the scenario over and over and over. So really, if we want to heal, this is part of the work to recognize those unhealed wounds within us. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ho'oponopono, but this is like another practice for this. This is like we're coming into that forgiveness and like, yes. And I'll put a song in the group too. It's really good. I want you guys to play that.
I love
too.
that
Like,
one.
feel it.
I use that a lot for myself early on.
Yeah, it's powerful. So ho'o means pause and ho'opono means perfection. And so it's like we're saying the same thing here with the worksheets. We're like, this that's happening, the cause of this is perfect. It's perfect. It's perfectly orchestrated around us. These events that are happening for us, not to us. So even though it feels like it's happening to us, there's something rooted in our psyche that needs to be brought up into the light so that it can be pulled out once and for all. So like, as I was doing my worksheets, that was like a big understanding that happened for me. It was like, ooh, these feelings of being unheard, judged, scared, uncared for were feelings that I felt as a child from my parents. And so now I'm replaying this with my partner. And so how can I see the wound in me as what's causing this three-dimensional play to play out in my psyche to show me what's going on internally? And whenever something activates us in that high point, you can bet there's a root. You can always bet that there's a root there. If it irks us to the point of reaction, there's something deeper. Like if we're like, yeah, so-and-so did this and it like hurt my feelings, but I reacted like up here to a level 10. Well, duh, because this was something that happened earlier in life that we didn't get to. So this forgiveness that we come into for ourselves is work. It's not something that just happens, just like our happiness, right? Like we could do the forgiveness iceberg. We could put the forgiveness at the top and then we could show you all the things beneath that we've had to do to get to this forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't something we just snap our fingers, especially when we're talking about big, radical forgiveness.
And learning how to forgive yourself.
Exactly. And I love how this put that in there. You know, it's like a note to myself at the very end. It brings us back to that. It's like, okay, I recognize that I'm a spiritual being having a spiritual experience in a human body, and I love and support myself in every aspect of my own humanness. And so we see ourselves as perfectly imperfect, and same with the people, the characters that are in our lives, even though that can be challenging. So radical forgiveness is for us. It's something that is really, really powerful. It is a paradigm shift, and I believe that it requires higher consciousness and understanding that we do incarnate to have our soul evolve. And so if our soul needs to evolve, what kind of situations would we put ourselves through in order to evolve that soul? And how can we do it in a way with the least bumps and bruises as we incarnate into these situations? And, you know, they say suffering is playing the same story over and over again in our heads. So it's like, if we've got a narrative that's like, this isn't fair, I'm never cared for, I always get hurt, blah, 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 everyone abandons me, no one knows how I feel. That's the subconscious record that likes to come on and play. And so we've got to come into these spaces where we're like, okay, what's really going on? What's really trying to come up and be seen? I'm thinking about the root could also be like that inner child that's like, mom, mommy, mom, and it's just gonna keep talking until we say, what do you need? Like, what do you need to hear? What do you need to say? Let me hear it. Let me feel it. Let me change it if I can. Let me soothe and comfort you. And then I'm gonna move out of it. So I'm gonna put the Ho'oponopono song that I really like in here too.
I love that song.
I've put it on when I've been in the middle of like breakdowns and just been like crying. I remember there was one time I was like walking through the airport with my like sunglasses on and the song with my ear pods on, and I was seriously just like crying under my sunglasses, like walking through the airport. But like it's accessible to us whenever we want to do it. It's got to get out of our heads. So radical forgiveness is a lot like Ho'oponopono, right? And Ho'oponopono says like, I'm sorry, forgive you, I forgive me, thank you, and I love you. There's another one, I think, by Thich Nhat Hanh. I know I'm saying his name wrong, but my partner always says it to me, and it's like, I love you, I know you're suffering, I'm also suffering, I'm here for you, can you please be here for me? And so it's like this understanding, right? We're all going through challenges. We're all here incarnating and having these things that are growing our soul that are not always easy. So the more compassion that we can pour over ourselves, our experiences, and others and their experiences can be the less abrasive way to heal. And we're imperfect. So of course we're going to stumble through that. We don't expect perfection, but the question is really, how can I make this easier on myself? How can I lighten the load for myself? How can I support myself the most so that I'm not carrying around all this extra baggage that's making me exhausted, tired, and feel like I can't continue to live the life that I want and deserve to live. How can I evolve my soul to the point where I take these as lessons that are going to evolve me instead of taking it personally and just harboring them? And so, again, it's with compassion that we have these awarenesses. I hope and just want to reiterate that it's not about judging ourselves when we fall short, because we're human and we're going to. You can count on it, anticipate it, and love yourself through the process. But it's about knowing that when those things come up, we have a process that we can go through to lighten that load. And so I hope that this can be something that helps you guys with that process, because forgiving traumatic things is very hard. And it's something that we do need support with. So I hope that this worksheet can be something that when you start to feel those feelings, that you can bring it out and do a worksheet and be like, okay, I'm going to see if I can't come to a higher understanding and release some of the tension and pressure around the situation.
I want to see if I can get my daughter to do this.
Yeah.
You know, like, even if like she doesn't show me the paper, I'm gonna like explain this to her and print it out and see if she won't do it.
Yeah.
Because I think this would be so helpful for her,
Mhm.
just to like release some of those inner child traumas that she has and like just like letting it out, you know? I mean, I don't know if it will work, but I mean, I'm gonna
For
try it.
everyone, like literally,
Like,
if
you
everyone in
know?
the world could step into doing this, we would live in a totally different world. But this is what we're teaching. This is what we're learning. And so thank goodness, we know that the ripple effect happens and this is gonna be spread eventually. It's like, it's already trickling out into the world through you guys. It came to me, it came to you, it'll come to others. It's already come to other people.
Mhm.
And so to me, that's such a refreshing feeling to know that we're starting to come into these places where we're less reactionary and we're more moving through things without having to exert so much energy,
Mhm.
which we know when our nervous system is in hyperarousal, we're exerting quite a bit of energy. It can really deplete us to the point where we go the other direction. Cause another imbalance because we're exhausted from trying to hold up this persona, you know. I think I may have told you guys this, but I really love how Jim Carrey talks about like depressed is deep rest. And he says it's when you're exhausted from playing the character that you're playing. And he says like that's when we keep putting up a front or we keep having to be someone that we're not, like. And so to really like come into our authenticity and our brokenness and to be like, it's okay, I am, you know. Deb, hi, glad to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here too. Just something crossing my mind when you were saying when we're so full of this negative energy, like in hyperdrive. It's interesting because then you said, but we're absorbing all this negative energy as well. So how can that even have space in us to come in? Because we're on that negative thing, and then this is coming at us. I guess you know what I'm trying to express. I don't know if I'm putting it in.
Yeah. I think too, it's like about like when we feel sensitive sometimes too, but it's like if we can come into this big understanding that even everything around us that is around us is a projection of our mind in a sense, like according to yogic texts, if we want to go there, you know, it's like we incarnate and then we have these reflections, these head movies that come out, which are our reality. And so even if we are sensitive and we have these beings around us, they're all reflections of us at the end of the day. And so everything outside of us is inside of us. And so like, if we want to even come to that truth, then it's like, well, we're already one. So we're not taking on anything that's not ours and nobody's taking on anything that isn't theirs. Everything is in divine order at all times where we're being shown exactly what we need to.
Absolutely.
Thank goodness. But it doesn't make it any easier when we're going through it and we're feeling the heaviness of each situation. But
And like science has said that the object changes with the perceiver, which is mind-boggling, but here's something, and then you perceive it Now it changes because of the way you're perceiving it.
Exactly, exactly.
Just like how we interpret each other's when we're talking to each other.
Right,
Everybody sees something different.
totally. We're all having
Yeah.
our own experience.
Yeah.
This is why we can't take things personally, because everybody is having their own human experience.
Yeah.
So usually whatever's going on in their life is just their own expression and then it's coming into ours. But we can bet that if it's coming into ours, there's a reason. Like we drew this energy, right? Like, and this is, if we come into this divine understanding, like yogic texts discuss, like we are bringing about the experiences that we need to create the alchemy of change within us. And so it's a radical truth. It's something that requires a paradigm shift, absolutely. And it's something that takes a process to get there, and we don't always arrive when we think we should. So, I feel like, again, I've been doing this work for so long, and I can have one little instance, and like, Deborah, we did this worksheet today on the radical forgiveness.
Yeah, I see that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And so it's like this little process, and so we're kind of talking about the process. But for me, what became really apparent as I was working through the worksheet, I was telling them is that this instance that I was writing about is not the initial trauma for me, but it brought up the initial trauma for me. And I was able to recognize that through doing the worksheet. Like, okay, when have I felt these feelings that are coming up right now in this situation that I'm writing about before? And for me, it was like, aha, I felt this in my childhood. I felt this from my parents. I felt this from my siblings. I felt this from past lovers. I felt this from friends. And so this theme has been playing in my life for so long, and so it's about me now recognizing, these were all just characters in my conscious reality that were showing me that I had unhealed wounds of feeling unheard, of feeling judged, of feeling fearful, of feeling uncared for and neglected. And so if I can get to that root and I can hopefully heal these wounds, then hopefully all the characters in my reality start to reflect that healing back to me, which is like, wow. So, right? I would love, and I think we've all probably seen that to some extent as we've been healing. Is you'll probably notice the characters in your reality change, right? As soon as we grow and we shift and we change, then the people we interact with don't always like that. And sometimes they go away because exactly. And if they stay, it's because there's still work to be done.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so we have to be aware of that. And that is even in family situations, because we can still draw boundaries and we can still have our safety protected, and we can still speak our truth. And we can also limit how much we allow that energy into our lives still. And even some people absolutely have every right to end certain relationships should they choose, whether it's family or not, depending on what the experience is there. So again, when we change ourselves, everything around us changes. So the key is to always come back to ourselves for change. It seems like the initial way that we deal with that is always external, right? Like we want to just go straight to the problem. If I just talk to this person and if I just sit down with them and I just get them to understand me and Well, what if that's like a lot more work than just pulling out a worksheet and making our own piece? Because we really don't know how anybody else is going to respond, whether they're going to do the work that it requires for them to grow, whether they're going to learn the lesson of the character that you're playing in their life and the role that you're playing for them, because we are playing characters also for other people. And so, that's all part of the process of this growth. So I hope that this, again, is just another tool for you guys. If you feel like you get to a point where you're really frustrated and you're not really sure what the root is, I feel like this can bring us about all the way for full circle to really kind of understanding that. And not only that, it softens the energy around the whole situation. it starts to bring in that ho'opo'ono energy of like, I understand you, I have compassion for you, I understand me, I have compassion for me. So that can soften everything. Go ahead, Deb.
What comes to mind is our expectations of other people are often what's really hurting us. If we can accept them for who they really are, even though it's not what we want,
Mm-hmm.
change the whole equation, you know.
Yes.
Like me and my mom are opposite people, and I spent my whole life expecting her to be my mom, and once I accepted that she's who she is, my expectations change, then my own suffering is
Exactly.
alleviated. And another thing I want to mention that came to mind was, you know, we have memes, all these, you know, cliche little sayings, some better than others, but the one that gets me sometimes is when they say, what you notice in other people, it's you have in yourself.
Right.
Yes and no, really,
Right.
because if you're evolved or educated enough to understand human behavior, you can look at someone and say, this person is lazy, this person is narcissistic, whatever. That doesn't mean I'm lazy or narcissistic.
Agreed.
That's not true.
I really like, there's this guy, Greg Braden. Have you guys ever heard of him?
Greg Braden.
He's kind of an older spiritual guru kind of speaker, inspirational speaker. But he has this thing that he talks about. It's called the 7 Unseen Mirrors. And so he talks about that there's 7 different types of mirrors. And he says that our reflections are not only reflections to show us who we are, but it's also to show us what we judge, where we need healing. I can't remember all the different ones, but he broke it down into all these different types of reflections. And that really like helped me too, because I remember hearing like, you know, everyone's a reflection of you and feeling like, really? Because I'm not a serial killer. I'm not an abuser. I'm not like, you know, and so, but I really like that it comes into like where we judge people too, because it's like, is there judgment? Are we carrying that around? Because that's disruptive to us as well. So is there a space where we can neutralize and disengage with certain energies? And I've learned too that this is an important part of our interaction with people, but just to give ourselves permission to not interact with people like that anymore. Because the universe listens to that also. It's like, do you want to keep entertaining this energy? Because you can, you absolutely can. It's your choice, it's your life. You can hang out all day. But if you are tired of the same old with this energy, it's absolutely okay to say like, I'm not entertaining this anymore. And then usually the universe is like, oh, she's not entertaining this energy anymore. I've got to bring her a different character. And so the character is usually a little bit more evolved if we've grown, thank goodness. But we don't have to keep entertaining all the past characters out of loyalty, which is another trauma response where we feel like we have to be so loyal in order to be loved. So these are things too that come up with trauma a lot of the time. So again, it's all about balance. And I'm going to put the name of that in too. It is all about.
Yeah, it's like, what are you looking for? If you're looking for negativity and the worst parts of people and situations, well, there you go. You'll find it very easily. So I think that's where it makes sense to say, okay, what you see in others is really your projection onto them. You could also see them as really wonderful people besides all their shortcomings.
Yeah. Great.
No one's all good or all bad. We're all in the gray area somewhere.
Yeah.
So this guy, I'm going to tell you right ahead of time, he like this speech or whatever that he's giving, he is probably has like mullet. It's an old it's an old chat. But it's like a 2-hour video. So I'm gonna just copy it and send it to you. If you feel called to, you can check it out. But I felt like that was a really helpful thing for me too, because I remember people saying that and I was like, that's not my mirror. Or can I choose to not have this person be reflecting in my life anymore? So for me, I don't talk, I have 4 boys with my mother, and we don't talk, like, because I have removed him from my life. My boys are aware of that, and I don't encourage them to do, I just honor whatever they want to do with their relationship with their father and with me. But he's blocked on my phone, he's blocked on all of like my social media. He's blocked in my family members' phones as well. And so we have severed our ties. And I know that sometimes it's like, for a long time, I was like, he's the father of my children. I should be able to have this relationship. I should have to nurture this relationship because it's for my kids' sake. And it's like, nope, no, I don't. I don't have to do that. In fact, it's more toxic for my children to have us interacting because then they have to deal with the chaos of what comes when we do have this interaction. My partner or my ex still would keep in touch in a toxic way if I did not block him. And so for me, I made the choice to say, like, I don't want this reflection in my life anymore. I don't want this lesson in my life anymore. I've learned what I need to from this lesson, and I'm removing it from my life. Like, it almost had to be like removed like a cancer, you know? And sometimes like we have those people and those energies in our lives where we do have to mindfully say, like, do I need to remove this person? Are they a cancer in my life? Are they a cancer in my energy field? Have I learned what I need to learn from them? And maybe they just keep coming back to me because they haven't learned their lesson. So, you know, again, this comes back to our mindfulness, needing to just observe ourselves so that we can be aware of when we're doing these things and what we need to do next. So this is our radical forgiveness. I do really, really recommend the book. He's very candid about his experiences with radical forgiveness. He talks about, you know, his wife cheating on him on their anniversary. And so he goes into talking about how he forgave her. And then he goes into some even bigger concepts, like I told you about, like school shootings and Hitler and like massive radical forgiveness. So I was really inspired by the book and the process that this gentleman came up with. He is no longer alive, unfortunately, but his work is still alive and well. So if you guys feel called to work with it or share it with others, I hope you do. It can be a helpful tool for you. But again, reiterates, like, everything happens when we're ready. There is no expectation of forgiveness or when forgiveness needs to take place or how it needs to look. It's all just when we're ready, if we want to enter into those spaces, here's some support. So I do just want to continue to add that.
Which is the book? Is it by Colin Tipping?
Yes, it's by Colin Tipping.
And what is the name of the book?
It's called Radical Forgiveness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's really good though. It is a book on tape also. If you guys like to do that, you can listen to it that way. I did that on a car drive and it was like life-changing. I felt like I had like a spiritual experience. By the time I arrived, I was finished with the book and I was just like, oh my God, this came into my life like exactly when I needed it. I'd just been dealing with major conflict. And it was like I hit the play button literally after it had happened and it just totally transformed the situation. So that's really cool. I know, it was really great. As these books kind of find us, and so does the information right when we need it usually. So forgiveness is a huge part of our healing, our transformation. It's something we do for us though, without expectation, when we're ready. So this is radical forgiveness. You guys have any questions or things you want to discuss before we move into yin, let me know. Otherwise, our next subject we're going to move into is yin yoga.
Just one thing is going through my mind is how, okay, we've done the forgiveness and all that, is how we can still get sucked back in over and over and over again. Breaking that cycle is really difficult, and I'm not sure how that fits into all of this. Probably all of it is part of how to detach and, go in a different direction than constantly going back to your abuser or a bad
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, I think too, like the deeper the root, the more we have to dig too, It's like the longer it's been sitting there under the surface, the more work we're probably gonna have to do to get to it. And the longer it's been narrating, like say those roots have been growing since we were 3 years old, well then they're probably gonna need a little bit more than like a one radical forgiveness sheet,
Yeah, so basically it's all the healing to where you're loving yourself so much that that doesn't work for you anymore.
Yeah, totally. And
So
it,
the
absolutely, exactly.
neural pathways change and all that stuff.
Yep. When we change, the things outside of us change completely. And so when we want to see that change, then we know we go internal and do this work here, and then it affects always on the outside. So this is why I always am just so compassionate to people with trauma. It's like we realize like it's a process, it's work. It's not like we roll out of bed and just feel good always. Like, like this is something that takes our participation, something that we really have to step into. And so that's why I'm really passionate about sharing it, because like I've told you guys before, I know that when we're uncomfortable in a dysregulated state, my sister and I used to say, like, there's nothing more uncomfortable. Like you would peel your skin off if you could, because it's just like, you're that uncomfortable. So doing the work to heal, it's like, I feel like everybody with that amount of trauma is like, show me what to do. Show me, I'll do it. Like, I'll do the work because I don't want to feel like this anymore. Like it can't be any harder than waking up with the heaviness and the pain and the discomfort that I'm feeling every day from the trauma. So, and again, support systems are important. Knowing that like, this group is available to you guys. You have a counselor that you really enjoy. I highly recommend that as well. Support groups, all the things that we need to just be supported in our journey, because we weren't meant to walk it alone. And I know that's another trauma response, right? Like I can do it myself. I'll do it myself. I don't need your help. I don't want to put you out. It's like all the narratives can come around, but we really do need support to heal.
There's a shame that goes along with admitting to people like suffering, or I went through this.
Exactly. I love Brene Brown for that. Have you guys familiar with her? She's like the shame expert, right? So, but I love a lot of like her TED Talks and books and everything on shame.
What's her name?
Brene Brown.
Brene?
Like BRENEA, I think. May be spelling it, but and then Brown. Really love her. And she's funny and relatable, and it's just super nice. So, all right. So check out the book. Feel called to do the worksheet as many times as you feel called to. You guys have the PDF, so you can print it out if you want, and even just keep a stack around. Eat it.
Oh, I'm totally gonna do that. I'm totally gonna do that.
All right. So let's talk yin, and then we're gonna do a little practice after we discuss yin as well. So yin yoga and the nervous system. Page 87. It says, like many of the previously stated practices to regulate the nervous system, the intention behind yin yoga is to slow down, to allow the body's natural and innate intelligence to achieve balance. In a yin yoga practice, you slow the sympathetic nervous system and engage the parasympathetic nervous system. You find balance and homeostasis. Stress hormones decrease and the feel-good hormones or endorphins increase, and reducing inflammation as well takes place, as we know through all of the other previous stuff we've discussed. And it says, as we discussed previously, the limbic system is a set of structures and interacting areas in your brain that are involved in motivation, emotion, learning, memory, and arousal. And we know the limbic system contains regions that detect fear, control bodily functions, and perceive sensory information, among other things. We also know that the limbic system influences the autonomic nervous system, which includes the fight or flight stress response. Therefore, yin yoga aims to achieve coherence and harmony in the body. The body's rest and repair mechanism is activated, and this is the key to health and longevity. Yin yoga, along with a healthy diet, exercise, meditation, and adequate sleep, will enhance the quality of your life. Yin yoga is not a luxury, it is a necessity. So it says, yin yoga is a slow-paced style of yoga as exercise, incorporating principles of traditional Chinese medicine with asanas or postures that are held for long periods of time, more long periods of time than other styles. Advanced practitioners may stay in one asana for 5 minutes or more. The sequences of postures are meant to stimulate the channels of the subtle body as discussed in the 12 meridians in Chinese medicine section, and as the nadis in Hatha yoga. Yin yoga poses apply moderate stress to the connective tissues of the body, the tendons, the fascia, and the ligaments, and with the aim of increasing circulation in the joints and improving flexibility. A more meditative approach to yoga. Its goals are awareness of inner silence and bringing to light a universal interconnected quality. So we kind of went through the 12 meridians, and you can see that they run all through the body, right? There's a lot of them just from head, hands, feet, toes, and everywhere in between. So when we come into our yin postures and we hold them, we tend to open up those meridians. So I went ahead and put together a little sample yin flow view for you guys if you feel like you need it. It's not, you know, super fancy or anything, but this is one that I really like to work with. And I suggest doing it near a wall if you have the option. If you're teaching in a studio that has a wall, it's really nice to be able to use the wall as a prop. And so you can just set your mat up long ways so that the short side of the mat is connected to the wall, and then we're using the wall for a prop as well. So you can see each has a different time. So this is a 60-minute flow. You start out in easy pose for 5 minutes. And we can know that it's getting into those more meridians that are more into the feet, ankles, legs, groin, and lower half of the body when we're in that position. And then as we come into seated forward fold for 5 minutes, we definitely use the bolster. This woman has a block in her hands, like holding it up. I would omit that, and I would totally just lie on the bolster. And the other thing is you can do the bolster vertically so that it goes a long way down your legs instead of the way that she has it horizontally over the ankles. So there's a couple ways to bolster.
Support your chest.
Yeah.
Too.
Exactly. And then you go down and there's the supported spinal twist or supine twist for 2.5 minutes on each side. If you really wanted to, you could do 5 minutes on each side. You would use a bolster blanket between the thighs or under the knees and make sure that the left shoulder stays down. On the next page, it's a 5-minute reclining bound angle or sleeping butterfly pose. You can do this non-reclining if you don't have bolsters or pillows or cushions. You could just do sleeping butterfly on the floor and add the blocks, which you guys will see. Today's yin practice, I know you guys already know, but the jungle doesn't really allow for amazing props. So we have cork blocks that we use for today's practice. So even with minimal props, you can practice yin. And then we go into supported bridge for 5 minutes. Supported frog, which really this is more like a supported child's pose as the toes are closer together, which is beautiful. And it says left and right for 2.5 minutes. And the reason it says that is because you're just gonna switch your ears so the neck is getting an equal stretch. So left ear for 2.5 minutes, right ear for 2.5 minutes. And then we've got our supported Sphinx. So with Sphinx pose, you'll see this in the practice today, and you might already know some of these methods as well. So excuse me if I'm being redundant, but also you can place a blanket or a block underneath your chest in supported Sphinx. You could also place a blanket underneath your hips if that feels good as well. And then we've got fetal pose. I like to do this one on both sides because I know the right side is ideal for yoga. We say this a lot, right? It benefits the heart and it puts all the systems on board. But when we lie on our left side, it aids digestion. And so they're both beneficial. And so I have them do both sides. And then we've got legs up the wall, and you can see she's got a nice little bolster underneath her bum, lower back area. You could offer that, but you could also do it without the bolster. Since we're on the wall, you're just going to go straight into butterfly on the wall, or you could also do malasana on the wall, yogic squat on the wall if that felt good for you. And then after that one, you just go straight into Shavasana for your 10 to 5 minutes, and then you can offer a meditation if you'd like also. So this is just a yin flow. It's one that I really like working with the wall, like I said. And so if you need to have a 60-minute yin flow, getting into those meridians, at least you have a little hodgepodge flow here. Sorry, the pictures are kind of all random, but you guys get the idea. So this is our yin. And since we're focusing on the forgiveness theme today, I wanted us to get a little yin therapy of our own. And since we are more advanced practitioners, I'm going to challenge us to do a 15-minute pigeon on each side with the mantra of forgiveness. And I want you guys to bring a little journal. It could even just be this, and then you can write your feelings kind of as you're going through it. But I want you guys to cultivate like a nice comfy space before we start. Make sure you have like blankets, water, props, whatever you feel like to support you, crystals if you want.
Oh, yeah.
And when we get into it, we'll work through it together. We're going to be in it together. And obviously, if we need to get out of the posture at any time, we absolutely will. This is something that they did in my teacher training, only we did like 30 minutes on each side, which I feel like was a little bit much. And so we're going to do 15 minutes. We're going to see what kind of release we can promote for our body by just sitting in that while we work with a forgiveness mantra. So the mantra is going to be, I lovingly forgive myself and I lovingly forgive others. Okay. And we know that when we work on the right side of the body, we tap into relationships with masculine energy. And when we tap into the left side, we're focusing on our relationships with the feminine energy. So we could focus on forgiving males in our lives as we work on the right. We could focus on forgiving females, including ourselves, on the left. If that resonates, feel free to utilize that. Go ahead and take a little 5 to 10 minute bathroom break and setup break. So we'll set up our little spaces. If you need to grab water or use the restroom, do that. And then we'll meet back for our 15 minutes on each side pigeon. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. The right is female.
Masculine. If I misspoke, my apologies.
Well, I thought I might have been spacing out too, which is
Right, masculine, not feminine. Yeah. Okay. We'll see you guys here in just a second. I'm going to set up my map.
okay. I'm going to tune out and come back on my phone so I can actually move over to my.
Okay, cool. See you soon.
It's just urine.
Okay. So have you guys already done some movement today?
Yeah.
I haven't because I did the yoga nidra this morning, so I
Okay,
haven't my body.
then let's just do a quick little warm up maybe for our hips so that we don't just throw ourselves into a pigeon really fast. Let's just start in a little seat. And then we'll start out just with a little bit of soupy grind to start. So hands on the knees, sitting up tall, and just start to kind of spiral the chest, keeping the hip bones grounded. And you can move slow or you can fast. The circles can be big or small, but try to kind of feel in to your groin and your hips. A couple more in this direction. And then we'll start to go the opposite way. Two more in this direction. Bring it back to center. Coming into butterfly pose or Baddha Konasana, soles of the feet are touching. And we're gonna hold the feet together. Gonna sit up nice and tall. Just kind of flutter your knees here for a minute. This is like another way to bring some of that shaking medicine in.
Oh yeah, I did this with fire's breath. For your sleep roll. Really, yeah.
So just bouncing off the knees, fluttering them like little butterfly wings. Break up the stale and stagnant energy here too. Feel like you've had enough of the bouncing, you can come into stillness and just let the knees become heavy. Take a big inhale, lift the chest. And then exhale, fold over the legs. Maybe the elbows are resting on top of the knees. Feeling this nice stretch in the legs and the groin. And we've got our feet touching here to balance out all of those nadis, the bottom of the feet. Take a couple more deep breaths here as you sink into the stretch, priming us for our pigeon. Feel the hips, the groin area, really priming. One more of the biggest breaths yet. And we'll inhale, start to come up with the chest. And then we'll make our way to tabletop from here. as we start to make our way to pigeon, not quite going there just yet. As we come into tabletop position, we'll start to spiral clockwise, some more spirals. And this is because it really gets into the hip joints, the knees also. You can make your circles big or small, but you're kind of feeling it, the body to see what it needs to feel comfortable. Maybe you drop your hips to one side and spiral around, or maybe the circles are tinier. There's no right or wrong, but what we're doing is bringing synovial fluid around the hip joints and the wrists and the shoulders and even the knees. And then start to go the opposite direction. Maybe you're hearing some crackling or popping through the joints. And as long as it's not painful, that's okay. Do 2 more. And then we'll make our way back to center and we'll do a few cat cows. Start to drop the belly towards the earth. Inhale to rise to cow. Exhale to round to cat. We'll just do 4 more of these cat cows at our own pace. And then we'll come back to tabletop. Finally, tuck your toes, lift your hips, exhale it back into down dog. Pedal out your feet here. And do our right side first, starting with the masculine side. Is getting into also our ascending colon, so our ability to absorb. So we're going in the order of digestion. So when you come back into downward facing dog, shake up the head a little bit lower here. Wiggle your jaw. Grab the top as far as you can. And then let's inhale, right leg up. Exhale, right knee to right wrist for pigeon. Left leg straightens behind us, take your time. If you need props or support in the pose, please feel free to offer a block under your right hip. If you want to stay on your palms or your forearms in the posture, please feel free to honor that as well.
But not done.
Yes.
I tend to do that. I really do. I tend to dump my shoulders.
Always so easy to. So I'm gonna start our timer. You guys find a nice deep breath. And as always, with everything, if you need to come out of the posture at any moment, please do. We're working with the affirmation of I lovingly forgive myself and I lovingly forgive others. We're on our right side, our masculine side. So maybe we're focusing this on masculine energy or males in our lives. And again, we're just sending that to free the body of the tension. So maybe you feel that dissipate as you sink into forgiveness. I lovingly forgive myself and I lovingly forgive others. Just repeat it in your mind, find a comfortable space. You could also put on the Ho'oponopono song if you like it, if it makes you feel distracted or guided. See what comes up in the stillness, and instead of trying to keep it from coming up, just let it. If anything does want to come up, it could be frustration. It could even be in the form of laughter or tears. The body has lots of ways that it likes to move energy. So your job is just to trust that your body knows exactly what to do. Remember, tension is resistance. See if we can't release resistance, softening not just our bodies, but our minds. Lovingly forgive myself. And I lovingly forgive others. You could even think of it as nothing wrong ever even occurred. It's just information. It's just insight into us. Lovingly forgive myself. Feel it in your body. I also lovingly forgive others. Maybe you even want to think of them or name them as you're moving through that. Even do lion's breaths or Sitali breath. You feel like you need to release, maybe lion's breath. You feel anger coming up, maybe Sitali breath. We've already moved 1/3 of the way through. We've already done 5 minutes. So that initial yin period. I lovingly forgive myself. I lovingly forgive others. The other place we might feel our bodies is also in our knees, and we remember this ties into our ego. You might feel your ego speaking up in the posture as we work forgiveness also. So if that's happening, you can remember the ego is trying to protect you, so it has good intention, but you can remind it that you're safe, that you're okay. safe to forgive. More than halfway through. Belly breathing. I lovingly forgive myself and I lovingly forgive others. Your right toes are getting numb and tingly. This is also okay. Five minutes left. Sometimes you might feel shaking in your hip, so, or like tremoring. This is energy moving. You can even, you need to massage your right foot with your left hand, if that helps. You can even massage your hip, that helps. So notice what the emotion is behind it. Three minutes to go. You could bring out your mudra from this morning, also bringing in tranquility if that resonates. Rolling your index finger into the pad of the palm and then picking the thumb on top of that index finger. Minutes left. Anything for 2 minutes? All those meridians, cleansing, clearing that's happening to them. As we get into this side, we're dealing with the urinary bladder meridian, the gallbladder meridian, and we're also tapping into the stomach meridian. If 4 seconds. Seconds. Cool. Gallbladder, stomach, and urinary tract tie into anger and fear. All right, let's free that leg, hands under the shoulders. When you're ready, just move the right leg back and shake it out. Shake it all down. Take it all out. Shake for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take it to down dog. Now pulse your heels up and down. Take that energy back down into the lower half of the body. Pulse and shake.
My foot is totally asleep.
That's those meridians, so hopefully we're getting that bladder, this gallbladder. If I had a gallbladder. When you're ready, add any other movements. And then we'll get to the other side. Take a couple lion breaths. You could also do the horse lips. Both of those are gonna be the practice. And then let's inhale the left leg high when you're ready. Exhale, let the left wrist for that other side. Lado. Support yourselves. Need blankets, water crystals, mantra card, anything in front of you.
My foot is so right now. So distracted.
Breathe into it, that flow. So we know that the meridians are different on both sides of the body. Now we're getting into kidney. We're getting into spleen. And we're also getting into the liver.
I felt a little tiny, but not like I did yesterday in the day.
Good.
Like it was very minimal. It's like I felt like it lasted for like a breath.
So when we deal with the kidney, sometimes we deal with disappointment, failure, and shame. Spleen. Which is obsessing about things, overthinking. And last, we've got the liver, which is the seat of anger. So if any of those emotions arise, totally makes sense. This is us clearing those meridians. Finding a deep breath. We're lovingly forgiving ourselves and we're lovingly forgiving others. Now we're on the feminine side. So if it resonates, you can apply that to yourself and to any female energy or people that you can think of. You know, for myself, one side is definitely more challenging. It's always worth noting. Find a good space for meditation, mantra. Put yourself out of the mind. Lovingly forgive myself. I lovingly forgive others. I've already done 5 minutes. We're 1/3 of the way done. lovingly forgive myself, and I lovingly forgive others. Or you can always journal if you need to while you're here. Work with your worksheets. Or come back to your mantra. Five minutes left. Lovingly forgive myself and others. 2.5 minutes left. Whatever needs to move, move. Give it breath. Remind yourself, like all discomfort, this too shall pass. 60 seconds to go. Just about done. Second. You're ready, walk your hands back under your shoulders, tuck the right toe and kick that left leg back, shake it out. Shake, get that blood flowing back down into that limb. This is part of the medicine that tourniquet effect, all that meridian is now getting purified and you feel ready, you can come back to down dog pose videos. Faster, slow, doesn't matter. Whatever feels good for your body, honor it. Do any movement that feels good. Whenever you feel like your body has gotten what it needs to feel more comfortable, no expectation, make your way into the comfortable seat. Your time.
Like this side didn't fall asleep, and that is this side.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this side's like, it is, but it's like not as intense at all this one. And it's more like up here and like my, than it wasn't. But then like I felt it. Oops.
How are you guys feeling?
Oh, I thought I was muted the whole time. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Feeling good. Had this brainstorm. I have this big flat piece of selenite.
Uh-huh.
But
Oh,
I actually through my hip.
oh my God.
Pretty-
So cool. What
And
is, look at that beautiful piece of
Oh my
selenite.
gosh, I had a piece like that and my daughter broke it, so I put it under her bed.
So cool. How about
Yeah.
you? Are you okay?
you gave me the idea when you were talking about selenite the other day. And I have
I love selenite.
my big pointed crystals pointing east west.
I love that.
I figured
Love.
Yes.
that
Sorry.
was all.
Wow.
You okay over there?
Yeah, my legs are kind of asleep, so my body's just getting back to a customized.
Take them
natural-
out.
I know, totally, me too.
Yeah.
My whole leg and foot were totally numb. The tucked one. Did you guys have anything come up for you emotionally? You don't have to share it, but just,
I liked when you said, tension is resistant,
yes.
and the physical aspect of the resistance muscularly and in the body and the nervous system, but also the ego part.
Definitely.
The knee.
It's funny because for me, I felt my ego on the right specifically way more, like my right knee was really like acting out. And I definitely have a harder time with male relationships than female relationships. Like my ego wants to jump in to protect me with my masculine relationships. I just thought that was a little interesting, to have that kind of like reflected in my body. Well, we can be sure that those meridians in our legs are nice and clear. That you guys are feeling a little bit better, but just know also that through this process, if anything does come up, that's part of the movement. And so it's okay for emotion to arise with these. It doesn't always accompany it, but it can. So if it does, just know that that's probably why something is coming up. So if something comes up, you can be like, oh, there's my pigeon practice bringing this up now. So again, you can support yourself with like maybe a tapping practice with it if you want to move it out, or a shaking practice if you want to move it out that way. So it is now 11:50. So we are going to break for our lunch break. And then we'll head back, and after lunch, I think we are going over higher sensitivity in dysregulated nervous system. So we'll be talking about that when we come back. You guys have anything you want to share or discuss before we close out today? Let me know. Otherwise, we're gonna close out for our lunch session. Nope. Everybody okay?
Sounds good. I'll see you back at after lunch.
Okay. Giving you both big hugs and
Lots of love.
seeing you when we get back shortly.
Bon appetit.